Cardinals are 1-5. I think it would be naive for this program to ignore the fact that potentially they could be selling off some veterans. We teased it at the beginning of the year. Just kind of see how the season progresses here. They've got 2 more games before the trade deadline, Bo Brack. But producer Damien put this together. Producer Damien, this handy-dandy graphic as it relates to some potential trade candidates for the Arizona Cardinals, starting with, of course, now I think tight end number 2 for the Arizona Cardinals, Zack Ertz. Again, everybody on this list has a contract expiring in the next year or so, except for Hollywood Brown. He's done after this year. Ertz, Dennis Gardeck, they're out in 2024, and I believe DJ Humphries in 2025, but his guaranteed money is gone after this year. You can make it easier to move off of him. So looking at the candidates, Ertz, Humphries, Gardeck, Hollywood Brown, which would you say, Bo Brack, is the most likely candidate to be moved for this team?
Oh, man. I don't like any of these. I really don't.
Well, it's not fun to trade some of your best players, but let's just call a spade a spade. We're just being real here. We're keeping it real.
Yeah. I would have said, like, if you would have asked me, I would have said, like, Kelvin Beachum probably is the most likely guy out of the door. He's been active for all 6 games and hasn't seen a snap on the field. And, somebody's always looking for a tackle, and I just don't think he's going to sniff around with DJ's Humphries contract. And then we've got Ertz, who I don't see really much any benefit of getting rid of him this year. I mean, he brings like an $11 million dead cap if you get rid of him this year. But if you were to, just release him this upcoming offseason, you take a $5 million dead cap hit, but then you have $10 million in cap savings. So it really doesn't benefit you to do it. And I think like we've seen it, like with him being able to kind of dictate his timeline when he's coming back from his knee surgery. They showed him the respect there and got him ready for the season and played him from the very jump, right from week 1 to now, right? And until this past week, we didn't see him get out-snapped by anybody. Unless there's a shooter that comes to the Cardinals and Monti Ossenfort and says, hey, we want to trade to Zack Ertz. And, I don't think the compensation would be that much. I mean, he only fetched a 5th-round pick when he was in Philly a couple of years ago. That I think they would pay him the respect to be able to kind of say where he goes. Like, they're not just going to ship him to the highest bidder. I don't get the sense that they're going to do that. Like, I don't think the return on trading him for like the highest value, what is it, like 6th or 7th round pick? I don't think they want to do that and kind of set the precedent of like, hey, if you're a veteran on this team, we could at some point, if things go south, ship you out just for the highest bidder. That's not going to be appealing to potential free agents.
If a team were to offer a 3rd-round pick for Hollywood Brown, are you doing that trade?
No, I don't think so.
I agree, but you better be damn sure if you don't that you're assigning him to an extension this offseason. I know he could walk and you get a comp pick.
I mean, you get a 3rd for a comp.
But you better be sure the comp pick gets you a 3rd-round pick. What if it's a 1-year prove-it deal? He goes somewhere else. What if it's a 2-year, 3-year deal that's modest that gets you a 4th-rounder? You also have to remember, and this is important for everybody to keep in mind, Cardinals are going to spend money this offseason, which could potentially cancel out a comp pick.
What the hell's going on?
What are you
homers?
Two Philly solo home runs.
Schwarber and Harper?
Yeah.
What are we doing, Gallen?
Sad.
Sorry, Johnny.
I'm sorry. I thought we were doing a podcast professionals here. I want Hollywood Brown to re-sign with this team, but I don't want to see this franchise in a year where this team could have 1 win at the trade deadline, not explore options that would net them additional draft capital. If the Kansas City Chiefs call and they say, you can have our 3rd-round pick for Hollywood Brown, you have to consider that. If you're not going to re-sign,
almost a 4th.
What's that?
What's the difference between why would you compromise?
Your comp pick, number 1, could get canceled out with the amount of money you're going to spend this offseason, and it also wouldn't be here until 2025. For Cardinal fan, go ahead. You're making a face.
No, I think that I don't think that that's the right move. I think, and it would be this. They would be incorporated in this draft, wouldn't they?
No, you get a comp pick.
Right.
Sign this free agency.
Fast
forwards to 2025. So you're telling a Cardinal fan base, oh, we love Hollywood Brown. We buy his jersey. It's fantastic. He's a great player, even though we can't get him the ball. Oh, we're not going to re-sign him? Then you better get value for him, like legitimate value. Because this fan base, Byron Murphy left for $7, and he had an interception yesterday. I know he hasn't been great. Zach Allen walked away. You got a 4th rounder. You didn't get the return on investment. They also traded away a first rounder. I know it was Keim for Hollywood Brown. So if they're trying to recoup some of that as the new regime, you have to consider that. I absolutely would trade Zack Ertz for any price tag I could get. You're telling me Jeff
Because
Swain
they're a
is
heartless monster.
I'm trying to listen. I get it. Everybody
Yeah.
wants to put a nice little bow at the end of this year. You're telling me this fan base, as ravaged as they are, 6 wins in the last 22 attempts in the last 28 games. They're 6-22, dating back to the end of the year in 2021. You're telling me if this team has 1 win at the trade deadline, fans are going to cry, a river over the fact that you're trading Zack Ertz and some other players.
What are you getting in play? What are you going to get with that? It's
I
a
think
lottery ticket. You want to trade a guy that came here and
they know what's going on. They understand. It's a business. They understand. I think Zack Ertz is not going to be on the team next year regardless.
Right.
So
like I said, financially, cap-wise, the amount of dead cap that you would absorb this season,
you're buying
it takes away your inability to roll over the cap space that they clearly wanted to do. That's why they got rid of and absorbed some of the deals that they did this offseason, and the way that Monti kind of maneuver everything as far as the cap. Like, they wanted to be able to kind of have something to roll over, and if you trade him at this point, that's going to take a significant hit, and I just don't see the value of that in having a 6th, 7th round pick.
That I understand. If it's a money thing, and you damn fucking better be sure you're spending that money then, because fans don't want to hear that either. I'm trying to come from everything from a fan perspective right now, because I think it's really important, given the fact this fan base has endured a lot of losses, a lot of losing. Fans like Hollywood Brown and would like to see him a part of this franchise. You're taking the kind of the pulse of the Twitter streets and fans at State Farm Stadium. If you are not actively going to re-sign him and he's not going to be part of your future, then you need to make the most of his value right now. Yeah. And I'm going to tell you right now, a 4th rounder this year is the same as a 3rd rounder in 2025. We always talk about the year later, the pick is devalued even more. So to me, I certainly think you could get a 4th rounder for Hollywood Brown, but I also think you could get the right team. Look at some of these teams right now. Gabriel Davis is having a terrible year for the Buffalo Bills. The Chiefs have no number 1 or number 2 receiver. All these contenders, these faux contenders in the AFC, they're looking at Cincinnati when T. Higgins comes back. Nobody can match what their receiving core is going to look like. I think Hollywood Brown would have a significant market coming into free agency. Wouldn't cost anybody anything. It would be a stretch run move. I don't think anybody can say for certain the Cardinals won't entertain that.
No, I just don't think they do.
Disagreeing with everything I say today.
Because I think that the guys that were able to survive this offseason, right, where they cleaned house, they have the respect of the coaching staff. And sure, they could – I think a lot of people, especially those players that are on your board there, from Ertz to DJ Humphries to Hollywood Brown, they're all competitors, and they would welcome being traded to a competing team. They would understand that. But if there is also some disrespect in there, you traded me for what? You traded me for what? I played a lot of big downs for this team, and you're just gonna flip me for
so are we in the business
on the dollar?
We in the business for just let's do sentimental non-trade.
At this stage, when you've stockpiled 12 draft picks potentially with Monti Ossenfort, depending on how the compensatory picks kind of fall, those chips fall with Zach Allen and Byron Murphy. I think that the Arizona Cardinals, they've built it for the most part. Like I said, you're just going to the gas station and you're buying lottery tickets.
I like how this team has bought lottery tickets in this draft under Monti Ossenfort. You're finding Stills and Clayton Tunes and Keitrell Clark's late in the draft.
Go out and they get guys they picked up an Elm Manning, who was another team's 6th round pick. They're able to find guys late in the draft like that.
More picks allow you maneuverability during the draft, moving up and moving down. So I think, again, we're pinching pennies if you're talking about a 6th or 7th rounder. We both agree with that. Hollywood is the one.
That's you the most. It's got to be Hollywood. Hollywood's the only guy that you're like, point. Oh, that's okay. Let's talk. Let me think about that one. Right? It's the trade that I rarely see in fantasy football. Usually, it's somebody trying to fleece me. but me and my 5-1
ship me some
record.
players, please.
But yeah, somebody
How dare
last
you.
night sent me a text looking for a handout. That ain't happening, Monti Ossenfort or me in the fantasy realm. But
I want to be on the record saying I want this team to re-sign Hollywood Brown because number one, I don't think they're going to get Marvin Harrison Jr. But that plays into this though. Is like, okay, the trade deadline's in 2 weeks. I promise we'll end on this. They lose these next 2 games, right? And they're 1-7 at the trade deadline. Kyler Murray, maybe he's back, maybe he's not. And you've got, your sights set on Marvin Harrison or somebody like that in the top 3 to 4. I mean, like, you have to have conversations about Hollywood Brown. I'm sorry. Like, unless you're convinced, like, no, we're going to bring back Kyler, which how would you know by that point? And we're going to bring back Hollywood and we're going to give both of them a bunch of money. Kyler's money is already guaranteed, and then Hollywood will give him a new contract. You have to have conversations.
Mikey Desert Cardinals saying, Monty being our GM, give me all those gas station lottery tickets. Is he just one of those guys that has a knack for, hitting on those? Like, there's people around the world that have done that. Certainly won multiple times. Trey, if we trade Brown now, we have the worst wide receiver group in the league. You lose, at least with the Cardinals, is the definitive number one.
Oh, you lose they haven't scored a touchdown in 6 quarters.
Kyler Murray comes back. He's likely hitting that easy pass and catch with Hollywood Brown down the side. The 4th down play where it's way out of bounds. Like, I think Kyler Murray can throw a better ball than that.
Listen, I agree with that, but is it too late at that point? Like, again, like, what are you doing that for? Like, it should all be about the last 2 months of this season, and it was the theme of the show should be evaluating for 2024. That's why Kyler Murray needs to play 8-9 games.
And what are you going to get from him if he's got to throw to Zach Pascal and the 96th overall? As much as we like Michael Wilson, I mean, the last couple games haven't been great.
Well, I mean, I think that's a byproduct of Dobbs, but I'll give you that. But I mean, I would like to see our boy Greg Dortch play. I mean, Rondell Moore would be, I would imagine, be included more in the passing game. But yeah, you take away Kyler Murray's number one receiver for the last 2 months, he's probably playing with his hand behind his back.
Didi's wrong. Didi is wrong that you're 100% right. I mean, that's all I know.
I think this fan base, somebody said it earlier, like I'm tired of watching losing football. It's a loser mentality to keep a guy for the rest of the year. And I've watched other teams do
agree with that. I agree with that.
But the Chicago Cubs 2 years ago, they did this big dog and pony show with Wilson Contreras, right? They didn't trade him at the deadline.
Is this CHGO Cubs? I don't care.
No, but this is what it reminds me of. Everybody got emotional. They're like, don't trade Wilson Contreras. And some people are like, no, trade him, get what you can.
Right.
Then they didn't trade him, and he left as a free agent. And they didn't get anything.
Yeah, so but they look, what they would have gotten would be significantly more than what we're talking about with the quartet of players that we put on display.
You need to weigh your options if you're the Cardinals.
Right. And Monti Ossenfort, absolutely. I mean, he
will. I'm trying to tell assets
I know Monty. I think he maximized, what he could do with the 3rd overall pick and what he did, like the risk reward on that. And I see like very little reward at this point for dealing any of those 4 players. I think you're just trying to hold your head above water for the remainder of the season. Like, you're going to bring back Kyler Murray. You're going to take out his I know DJ Humphries isn't playing the best football right now. You're going to take his starting left tackle out of it potentially.
I wouldn't trade DJ Humphries.
Huh?
I wouldn't trade DJ Humphries.
Right. Okay. But and then Hollywood Brown, you think he's going to love that move?
Again, though, like this is Ossenfort's team. It's not Kyler Murray's team.
Like, I'm all for GM maximizing his assets with the idea of improving the roster in the long term and making the hard decision, right? And sometimes having to get rid of a talented player now for future success. I just don't see that much. The risk reward on this, it doesn't match up.
I mean, a 3rd round pick's a day 2 pick. That's a starter. That should be a starter like next year. Jack Smith. So I disagree with this. Trade Moore and Dortch because I don't think they're going to do that because I don't think they get enough play to get the kind of value you'd want. But the back half of that sentence is interesting. 5'7". The Hollywood Brown's undersized. What does this team want at receiver? They want bigger receivers. Like, we know that. They didn't bring in one small receiver. They brought in 2 tall receivers and Zach Pascal and Michael Wilson. Like, I think we know this, they have a type. So it's like,
I
them
think
signing
Hollywood kind
Brown.
of is an exception to that. I mean, he's 5'9", right? He's a playmaker. That's the one thing you could really give to Hollywood Brown. Like he's been able to play the role like of Amari Cooper from Petzing coming from Cleveland, and what Cooper was able to do last year, and he's been kind of handcuffed by quarterback play a little bit. I think Hollywood would have a much more impressive statistical season if he got better quarterback play. There certainly is a type, right? Monti Ossenfort absolutely has a type as far as wide receivers and quarterbacks, right? He likes big body, physical guys, good arm on the quarterback, and good athleticism, but sturdy guys that are good route runners, versatile. And then Jonathan Gannon's got a type as far as inside linebackers and stuff like that, and D linemen and all that. So you're seeing that come kind of to fruition on this roster. But like Kyler Murray, Hollywood Brown, like those are guys that can kind of be the exception to these rules just because of their skill sets. And what Hollywood Brown has proven how valuable he is in making plays overall, but making plays on third down and in the red zone. And I think that's what kind of separates him from the other undersized guys. Like there's a potential where like they could keep Hollywood Brown, who's 5'9", but then they could revamp the rest of this wide receiver core where it's like Michael Wilson, and then you bring in other big bodied, taller wide receivers, and Hollywood Brown's your one under 6 feet guy where it was like with Cliff Kingsbury and Steve Keim, it was like you were playing a 4-guard set in the NBA.
Yeah. I would re-sign Hollywood Brown. They have the money. Certainly his relationship with Kyler Murray doesn't hurt, and I think he's proven to be a good soldier this year. My biggest pet peeve, bigger than that, I will be pissed off on this show if they don't move him and then don't subsequently re-sign him this offseason. And if somebody else, we got to celebrate a 2025 comp pick for a team that desperately needs assets and resources and players like Hollywood Brown now, that's going to bother me. It's going to bother a lot of fans in the fan base. Like, ain't nobody want to hear about a comp pick in 2025. You got your comp picks coming for Zach Allen this year. Great. Let's draft. Let's have a return on investment for that.